and a very warm welcome to the Homestead Oval just outside Miami, live here on Eurosport. This is Ben Edwards, joined by Jeremy Shaw, ready to bring you the Grand Prix of Miami presented by Toyota. It's round one of the 1997 PPG CART World Series, and lining up on pole position, as we've already seen, is the Italian Alex Zanardi, who's really impressed so many people in the world of IndyCar racing over the last year or so. He came in at the beginning of last year to this very race, but in a strong performance there, and really it's grown and built up ever since then, to the point that he really now starts this championship as the favourite. His teammate is the reigning champion, Jimmy Vasser. He starts a little bit further down the grid, but he still will be very strong. And watch out for this man as well. This is Maurizio Guterman. We know his name from Formula One from years gone past. He is really fired up this year to do a good job, and the PacWest team with the Reynard, Mercedes and Firestone tyres are looking extremely competitive. So Maurizio Guterman, who's been fastest in several of the sessions this weekend, starting from the front row of the grid, is one to watch. But also watch for Gilles de Ferran, the man who had this dramatic accident yesterday, but who'll be starting from third place on the grid. Just take another look at this heavy impact against the wall. A dramatic moment indeed for the Brazilian, but thankfully with the strength of the Reynard chassis, Gilles de Ferran totally unhurt in that accident. He's out in the spare car, and the team are hoping for a good result. On-board cameras, we've got one with Michael Andretti in the Newman Haas Swift, another with his teammate Christian Fittipaldi. These are two brand new cars, built in America, built down in California in fact, and both of these drivers will be looking for improvement as the season progresses, both of them in with a chance of winning races. Some of the young guns: Patrick Carpentier, the French-Canadian, looking to follow in the footsteps of Jacques Villeneuve. We've got Dario Franchitti from Scotland, who was fastest in the warm-up this morning. We've got Gualter Sales from Brazil, also doing a very competitive job. And young Richie Hearn, who started off his career in Europe in Formula Renault in France. We've also got Dennis Vitolo, who raced in the UK some years ago in Formula Ford 2000, and is now putting in a full season of the PPG CART World Series. Looking down over the Homestead Metrodate complex, you can see there's actually a road circuit as well as the banked oval. And Jeremy, this complex really very new, of course, and a very important man there to oversee operations. The Grand Marshal is Emerson Fittipaldi,
and a huge favourite here in Miami. He lives just up the coast a little bit there in Key Biscayne. He's been based here in the South Florida area since he came back to motor racing in the early 80s after retiring from Formula One. And he is just so popular in this part of the world. He was very much part of the people that put this track together with Ralph Sanchez, who is the brains behind the facility here. It's a wonderful track, and Emerson Fittipaldi was brought back into motor racing by Ralph Sanchez when he drove the sports car race in Miami, and he's just proud to be here this weekend, serving as a Grand Marshal. He'd much rather be in a race car, Ben, I know that though.
Yes, of course, he suffered a very nasty accident last year at the Michigan Oval, slightly different to this one. It's a very high-speed oval track. Suffered the accident. Thankfully, he's fully recovered from that. But as yet, not really a firm decision as to whether he'll be racing or not. He hasn't officially retired, but on the other hand, he hasn't actually got a drive either. So we'll just have to wait and see, and we'll follow Emerson's future career with interest. Of course, he's done just about everything, certainly in single-seaters in the past, as a former Formula One champion and a former IndyCar champion as well. There's the scene in the pits, though, as the cars are all lined up in grid formation, but not actually on the track there. You can see that's the pit lane area, and that's going to be a very busy place as we go through this race.
Gentlemen, start your engine.
So the engine's being started up now, and there you can see Gilles de Ferran, the man who suffered that nasty-looking accident, out in the spare car. The Walker team have got that other car ready, and now really looking strong for this race, starting from the second row of the grid, so we'll be keeping a very close eye on him. And of course, Gilles de Ferran, a lot of friends and supporters in the UK and in Europe after a very successful European racing championships behind him.
And another resident here of South Florida, he was living last year in Indianapolis when he drove for Jim Hall's team. Over the winter, he decided that Indianapolis was way too cold for him, so he moved down to Fort Lauderdale. Loves the warmth down here. He's really upped his training program over the winter, along with his countryman Maurizio Guterman. Those two are ready to go racing this year.
So we've seen the front row of the grid. Now we look at Gilles de Ferran and Greg Moore, who will be lined up on the second row of the grid. and De Ferran, who had a strong race here last year, came close to winning it, but couldn't quite because he was beaten by Jimmy Vasser, who'll be starting on the third row. But look there, Mark Blundell's right up there this time on the third row of the grid. Tremendous effort in qualifying yesterday, so let's hope it goes well for him today. Row 4 sees Parker Johnston, alongside him the first of the Ford runners, that's Raul Bazel from Brazil. Going from the fourth row back to the fifth row, Patrick Carpentier, the top rookie. Alongside him, one of the most experienced racers in the championship, Alonso Jr., starting from position 10, but definitely in with a chance of doing well and working his way up through the order. Then next up, it's Scott Pruitt, and alongside him, the former 3 times IndyCar champion, Bobby Rahal. Never count him out either. He's qualified in 12th position, but he'll have been working on the race setup. Behind them, Dario Franchitti finds himself alongside one of the other great names of the championship, Michael Andretti. For Dario, it's going to be a tough afternoon as he learns to deal with oval track racing. It's quite different to anything he's done before. Christian Fittipaldi lines up on the inside of row 8 alongside the Canadian Paul Tracy. Tracy not quite as fast as Alonso Jr. in the qualifying, but once again he's feeling quite happy with the car. Good performance from the Italian Max Papis in the Toyota-powered car to be on the inside of row 9. Brian Herter, meanwhile, who challenged for the win in Laguna Seca at the end of last year, he'll be disappointed to be way down on the outside of row 9. Behind him, Gualter Salles and Andre Ribeiro. It's an all-Brazilian 10th row to the grid. Salles coming into his first season. Ribeiro on the back of some wins last year, but not looking so strong just yet. Richie Hearn is another youngster with a lot of talent. Watch out for him. He's alongside the Mexican, Adrian Fernandez, on row number 11. Behind them, Michel Jourdain from Mexico. The Mexican attack on the IndyCar series continues. He's alongside PJ Jones in one of the All-American Racers cars with Dan Gurney, the team boss there. The other car is behind. It's Juan Fangio, and Hiro Matsushita is alongside him towards the back end of the grid. And we've just got one more row after that. Row number 14 sees Dennis Vitolo, and the man who failed to put in a lap time yesterday, unfortunately, Roberto Moreno, but he will be starting at the back of the field. The cars now behind the pace cars, the PPG pace cars that lead them around, and of course remember, they're all having to go out on cold tyres. It's an important point here, Jeremy. Unlike Formula 1, they do not have tyre blankets. They've got to start this race on virtually stone cold tyres.
The other big change, of course, is a rolling start. So we have 2 pace laps here and a parade lap before they get ready for the start to get everything up to temperature, get the tyres up to temperature, get the oil and the water and everything else up to speed there before they go into the turn 1 there at best part of 170 or 180 miles an hour on the first lap even.
It's very high speed stuff down here. We're getting ready for the start of this race. So Alex Zanardi leads them around. We'll check out on the chassis. You can see that 18 Reynards involved this year, only 6 Lolas, and that's a huge change. 2 Penske's and 2 Swift. Swift is the new chassis that's just come in. On the engine side, it's Ford that has the greater numbers, but Mercedes and Honda that have been looking stronger here at Homestead so far, and we're pretty evenly matched with the 2 tyre companies. 15 cars for Firestone, 13 cars for Goodyear, and the reports I've had, Jeremy, is that both tyre companies feel fairly comfortable so far this weekend.
Yeah, I think there seems to be very little to choose between them this weekend. It was really the same all last year. It's funny, on some of the tracks, the Firestones had an advantage. On some of the tracks, the Goodyear seemed to have an advantage. Overall, they both led about the same number of laps during the season, so it's pretty interesting. And this weekend, I think there's very little to choose between them.
Just building round. It looks as though we've got 1 lap to go until we start to think about the start of this race. Alex Zanardi leads them round. Gujamin on the outside of the front row.
Big change this year from last year. Last year it was also the first round of the championship here at the Homestead Motorsports Complex, but last year they were running in short speedway trim. The cars were running the large wings, which give a much greater amount of downforce. What they've done for this year is go to what they call the super speedway trim, smaller wings. They're trying to make the cars slow down more for the corners to make more passing for the fans. So we're getting ready for the start.
So here we go. The race is about to get underway. They're coming out of turns 3 and 4, and the blast down to start this race. We've got 148 laps to go here at Homestead. Alex Zanardi versus Maurizio Gujamin on the front row of the grid. It's Gilles de Ferran and Greg Moore on the second row, and let's just watch to see who gets the best start. Across the line they go. It goes green. Alex Zanardi gets the best start. Maurizio Gujamin is not making a good start. Greg Moore is trying to go around the outside, but in the end Greg Moore has to settle back into into fourth, and in fact he's losing fourth. He goes back down to fifth position. But a great start from Alex Zanardi, and he's already opening up a bit of an advantage along the backstretch. Maurizio Gugelmin in second place, but it looks as though he's being passed for second as Gilles de Ferran goes up through the inside there. Gilles de Ferran moves into second place. Oh, this is great stuff, and Gugelmin now has got more pressure on from Jimmy Vasser behind by the looks of things. You're on board with Jimmy Vasser as across the line they go. It's Zanardi who leads at the moment. De Ferran in second place, Gugelmin is third, Vasser in fourth place, then Alonso Jr. in fifth. Greg Moore's dropped right down to sixth. It was a bad opening lap for Greg Moore. Parker Johnson in seventh, then Michael Andretti has worked his way up to eighth position already from 14th on the grid. Tremendous opening lap from Michael Andretti there, with Raul Boesel in ninth and Bobby Rahal 10th.
And a huge lead for Alex Zanardi. There's the advantage of clear track here. He was able to pull out a large advantage. When Gilles de Ferran dived down there the inside in turn 3, he slowed himself and Gugelmin up considerably, and Zanardi was left with a clear track, and he's gone in the distance. He's more than 2 seconds ahead now after 2 laps of this race.
I tell you what's interesting though, Jeremy, is two of the not the young guns, the old guns, whatever we want to call them, the seasoned pros, Alonso Jr. and Michael Andretti. What tremendous starts they've made. Alonso's moved up from 10th place to 5th position, and Michael Andretti has moved up to 7th place from 14th on the grid. So that's a brilliant opening lap from those two guys, and it just shows you, doesn't it, the value of experience in this type of racing.
Experience counts for everything on this sort of racetrack, particularly when they get into the traffic there. And it's the same at the start. Nobody wants to make a mistake at the start. Nobody wants to be the fool that makes the mistake at the start. So most of them, particularly the younger drivers, are taking it a little bit cautiously, and some of the veterans, they won't push themselves too hard, but they know exactly where to put their car in order to make a pass or two in the early stages, and just give them a little bit less to do later on. But a great start from those two, as you say.
But a very bad start, I have to say, for Mark Blundell. Mark is the one who's lost out the most. He's dropped down to 14th position. So an absolutely disastrous start. We really didn't see what happened there. Alex Zanardi continues to lead as we complete 4 laps here. Gilles de Ferran in second position, Maurizio Gugelmin in third, then Jimmy Vasser in fourth place, and Alonso Jr. in fifth position. But Zanardi really making the most of that clean air to open up quite an advantage. Gilles de Ferran in second place has just managed to get away a bit from Gugelmin, but you can see how most of the other cars have chosen their position, and the gap is fairly constant between them, because of course as soon as they get that little bit closer to the car in front, they lose some valuable downforce through the corners.
Turbulence is a major problem here for these cars, particularly with these smaller wings. They give a lot less downforce than they had before, and if you get close behind someone, it really is a problem. So particularly in the early stages of the race, they know there's a long way to go, 148 laps as we said. They're going to have to make, of course, at least 2 pit stops during the race, but they've got to look after their tyres. They've got to make sure they don't burn up the rubber too soon, and they'll do that if they get close behind another car, and they'll get a little bit more understeer, or perhaps the car will slide a little bit more and tend to overheat the rear tyre. So at this stage in the race, take it calm, take it easy, and take stock of the situation effectively.
Now we're riding on board with Michael Andretti on this new Swift. Just watch the steering movement that goes into it. Obviously he's working the car hard, tucking it down close into the inside of the corner as he comes off turn 4. You're now heading down the main start-finish straight, and they're braking quite hard here. Down on the brakes, dropping down to about 165 miles an hour from over 200, building up the speed, then braking again a little bit for the second turn, and then hard on the power along that back straight. And these engines, even in their slightly reduced power form for this year, they're still producing around 800 brake horsepower, perhaps a little bit more. So they are talking about a lot of horsepower, and how you treat the throttle as you come out of these corners is so important. The man who seems to be making the easiest job of it so far is the Italian Alex Zanardi. There he is. He's opened up quite an advantage. It's 3.8 seconds, his lead over Gilles de Ferran.
And he's keen to make use of his clear track in front of him, because he knows that soon enough he's going to be up behind the tail end of the car. There's a big dice there on the back straightaway.
Michael Andretti trying to move up past Alonso Jr. Didn't quite make it. Parker Johnston is in the green and white car at the head of this train of 3 cars. But watch Andretti, always an aggressive race. Oh, he almost had to correct the car on the apex there. And on an oval track, that can spell trouble. Parker Johnston in the green and white car. Alonso Jr. in the red and white. And in the black, the menacing black Newman Haas Swift, it's Michael Andretti running 5th, 6th and 7th places, these 3 cars at the moment. And Parker Johnston, no way near the same experience as the 2 cars behind him. But don't count him out. He's a very competitive racer.
Yeah, just got past Alonso there, as you say, now in 5th place, Parker Johnston. That's a wonderful effort there. And coming up into now the slower cars. They're going past...
Look at this, Andretti's alongside Unser. Sorry there, Jeremy, but he's just got it. He's done him. He's gone up into 6th place as they crossed the line. So Michael Andretti now is on the move, and I have to say this is great stuff. A brand new car this is. They've hardly done any running with it. It was built over the winter, a bit of testing beforehand, but already he's showing the colours of this car. It is not going to be one that's down the back of the grid somewhere.
Yes, indeed. So he was so confident before the race meeting. He was saying he thought he was capable of qualifying in the top 5. He definitely thought he could win the race. They had some new car problems here Friday and Saturday. Didn't get all the laps they wanted on the car and didn't learn as much about it as they really wanted to. They actually switched to the spare car. This is not the car they planned to race. This is actually the prototype car, Chassis 01, and Unser doing a wonderful job. And it's interesting to see Alonso Jr. falling back there 2 places in those couple of laps. He's back now in 7th place, and Unser is the guy we really expected to be moving on up the field. So that's quite very interesting indeed.
Max Sushita being lapped already by the looks of things, and that's given Vassar a chance to get past Guterman. Vassar down the inside of Guterman into turn 1. Meanwhile, Michael Andretti is also on the move, perhaps getting past Parker Johnson, or is he going past back Marcus? We try and see which car that is just ahead of him. Has he managed to get past Johnson? We'll see that in just a moment. Meanwhile, a good move from Guterman. In fact, yes, he's right up there with Guterman now. So Michael Andretti really on a tremendous charge. Guterman's in trouble though. He's slowing down a little bit there. Is he? Difficult to tell.
Momentum, I think, Ben. I think it's the momentum. He lost the momentum because of that slower car going through turn 2. That allowed Andretti to get a run on him down the backstretch, and at the same time, Guterman tried to hold Andretti off into the turn 3. So again, he lost some more momentum there. Again, it's all about experience on the ovals.
You're on board with the reigning champion, Jimmy Vassar, in the Chip Ganassi, the Target-sponsored car. This is the team that Michael Andretti drove for, funnily enough, when he returned from Formula 1, and he's now chasing after Vassar. This is tremendous racing. Vassar's in 3rd place. Andretti's in 4th position. Guterman has now dropped back to 5th. Parker Johnson is in 6th. Alonso Jr. 7th. Greg Moore is in 8th. Then Raul Boesel in 9th place. And Bobby Rahal 10th. For the other European drivers, then Mark Blundell is down in 14th position, unable to move up as yet, and Dario Franchitti in 15th place so far. But let's concentrate. Back on the battles. Jimmy Vassar there, running in 3rd place. Qualified in 6th position, but with his teammate Alex Zanardi running away up front. Vassar now beginning to make his presence felt, but not far behind him is this man, Michael Andretti. Behind them, Guterman just dropping back a little bit further. He's about, let's see, well, he's dropped back behind Alonso Jr. now, Guterman, so whether he has got a problem, it's certainly not running as competitively as he was earlier on.
Yeah, a lot of people yesterday were saying when they run on full tanks, the car is laden down with fuel, and as the fuel load lightens, the tyres just get a little bit more worn, and sometimes the cars tend to go more towards oversteer, or loose, as they say on the oval. The back end wants to come around on the drivers, and that's not a comfortable feeling apart from anything else, far from it. It just gives the drivers a little less confidence.
So, with Alex Zanardi leading at the moment, De Ferran 2nd, Vassar 3rd. Let's take a break. Tremendous battle going on for 3rd place between Jimmy Vassar and Michael Andretti, and Andretti just got it crossed up coming out of turn 4, got rid of it sideways, and that's dropped him some momentum. And in fact, you can see just a moment ago, Jeremy, he was right behind Andretti, and now in fact we've got some other cars right behind him. Junior just passing Parker Johnston, so Alonso Jr. has moved back into 5th position as all of that happened, really, I think, because Michael Andretti just got a bit crossed up. He lost momentum. That may have helped Alonso Jr. in the background as well. Perhaps Parker Johnson had to lift a little bit. Whatever the reason, Unser's moved up now.
Yeah, the slower car there of Adrian Fernandez he's been struggling all weekend with the handling of his Lola there, and I think he held up Michael a little bit. He had to get off the front in the middle of the turn. Took him a little bit by surprise, I think, and there was a sort of concertina move behind him. But a great dice here for 2nd place. The leader, Alex Zanardi, 23 laps in the books. He's 5.5 seconds ahead. But this great dice for 3rd place now with Vassar and Andretti being at it for quite some time, and joined in now by Alonso Jr. and Parker Johnston.
It's really hotting up already in the early stages of this race. Don't forget, if it stays green flag all the time, we were expecting probably 2 pit stops, but I very much doubt that it will be green flag all the time. Of course, as soon as there's an accident, the yellow flags will come out, and then of course teams have to decide whether or not to come into the pit lane and do their refueling and tyre changing at that point. But at the moment we're not really anywhere close to making pit stops. We're concentrating on the running, and it's Zanardi who's still building up an advantage. stage.
The blue flag there waved by the official start here, Jim Swintal. His right arm's going to be pretty tired at the end of this day. It's really just a warning flag for the slower drivers, as if they don't know that there's other cars coming up behind. But it's just a little safety thing, and the drivers know that they need to be watching their mirrors as much as they can. But when you're going 200 miles an hour, it's pretty difficult to be glancing in your mirrors all the time. So there's the flag just to warn them that there is another car very, very close behind.
On board with Michael Andretti once again in 4th place. Let's just update you on the full positions at the moment as Zanardi continues to lead. De Ferran still in 2nd place. You ride with Gilles de Ferran now in 2nd position, chasing after Zanardi. The gap 4.2 seconds currently. Behind de Ferran is Jimmy Vasser, then Michael Andretti, then Alonso Jr., and the top 6 is rounded out by Parker Johnston. 7th place, he's still there. The problem doesn't seem to be too bad, but Maurizio Gugelmin not able to run at the leader's pace. Then it's Greg Moore as we've got coming into the pits. I think that's Juan Fangio again. He's been making several pit stops already. Obviously not going too well, that car, as we flick back and looking quickly at Alonso Jr. Coming into the pits, in fact. It looks as though little Al's coming to the pits. A little bit of smoke at the back of the car. Was there there? It looks as though there are problems for the Penske. Yes, definitely. It looks as though it's blown already for Alonso Jr. when he was running so strongly.
That's very, very early indeed. We were thinking they were going to be making pit stops. If it went green all the way, they were going to be making stops after sort of 39, 40 laps maybe. Between 40 and 45, that's certainly very early. And here comes the engine cover off, so obviously serious problems for Alonso Jr. That's a great shame. He was running very strongly indeed.
Yeah, pity, because he was in that battle with Jimmy Vasser, Michael Andretti and Parker Johnston. It means that Andretti's 4th, Johnston 5th, Greg Moore 6th, then Gugelmin 7th. Bazell is in 8th place, Paul Tracy in 9th, and then Scott Pruitt in 10th. Let me just tell you that Dario Franchitti, as unfortunately we see Alonso Jr. getting out of the car, so it really is the end of the day for Alonso Jr., and what a poor start it is to the season for him. A great disappointment. We saw Roger Penske. Bobby Rahal's coming into the pits. Now this is still very, very early. Is there a problem for Bobby Rahal? Rahal's been running quite a long way down the order.
Yeah, he was inside the top 10, but clearly has dropped back just a little while ago, and troubles there for Rahal. He's already 2 laps down. He'd made an extra stop there, which we must have missed, I must admit, Ben, but more problems, as you say, for Bobby Rahal. Here's a battle for 2nd and 3rd place.
In fact, 3rd and 4th place with Vasser in 3rd, but watch Andretti. Look how close he's got once again. Wonderful pictures from the back of Jimmy Vasser's car. And don't forget, you're now building up to over 200 miles an hour as you head down on board. And now back looking at the cars from the outside into the first corner as Andretti tries to get a little closer to Vasser to have that opportunity to dive down inside him into perhaps turn 3 and 4 coming up next.
Yeah, a great dice going on there. In actual fact, up at the front, Alex Zanardi has been held up by some slower traffic, and Gilles de Ferran actually got within a second or so of him the last lap around. I'm sure we'll catch that for you in a minute while we're concentrating here with Andretti. You can see him holding the wheel there through the corner. Nice constant arc on the wheel through the corner, which is exactly what you need. Got to be smooth, not to burn up these tyres.
You can see in the positions how close Zanardi and de Ferran have got, just under a second now. Then the battle here between Jimmy Vasser in the red car, Michael Andretti in the black car, Parker Johnston a bit further back. Oh, and de Ferran's got into the lead. Zanardi slowed down. What is going on? Alex Zanardi looks as though he could be in trouble. Gilles de Ferran is the new leader of this race, or has Alex simply made a mistake? Very difficult to tell, but Zanardi back to 2nd place.
Very interesting though. It's difficult to say what happened. Didn't seem to be traffic up there. It just seemed that he went in a little bit too deep maybe. Had to get right out of the throttle. Gilles de Ferran says thank you very much indeed. Through into the lead. Look at this knot of cars here as they're coming up to lap them.
Yes, there's Mark Blundell. Yes, Mark is in 17th position at the moment. He made a bad start. Let's just listen to Alonso.
From that 5th row up to 5th, then things started to deteriorate. What happened? Well, we had a good start and so on, but the car, I lost those couple positions because of traffic. I run into traffic and the guys had to run on me. Traffic's going to play a big, major part in today's race, but the Marvel car was going great, and we were just basically running some laps, seeing who's going to go off or who's not, and I was in a real comfortable position for the time in the race, and the engine let go. I don't know exactly what happened to it, but in a year when you try to shake away some of the disappointment of last year and you have great expectations, this has got to really hurt a lot. It hurts, we did a lot of testing down here preparing for this race, and to see us go out like this before even half distance is a shame, but I'll say hi to little Al and Cody and Shannon and Shelly and I's new little boy Joey, and thanks Al.
sadly out of this race very early on. We're 34 laps into the event now. De Ferran is your new race leader. Zanardi's still there. He's in second place, 1.5 seconds the gap between the two of them. So whether it was a problem in traffic, whether Zanardi has picked up a bit more, too much rubber on the tyres, that's always a possibility, and perhaps the performance of the car just going away a little bit. And of course, that's all part of the fascination of oval track racing. It may look very easy. It may look as though they just only turn left, but every single lap there's something different to deal with. Perhaps it's a car ahead of you robbing the downforce from your car, so you have to slow down more going into the corners. Perhaps it's simply the tyres are getting more worn. The car is sliding around more. The driver is working all the time to try and get the car to work as well as possible. Alex Zanardi then in second position to Gilles de Ferran. Michael Andretti running in third place. Jimmy Vasser in fourth. Parker Johnson is in fifth place. And then Greg Moore in sixth position. And they really are lapping the other cars very, very quickly. There you can see a rundown down to 12th place. See, Guterman's dropped down to 9th position now. Patrick Carpentier, the youngster, in his first proper championship race in 12th place. That's a good performance. Let me just tell you that Dario Franchitti is 1 place behind him in 13th position. Mark Blundell is down in 17th place, though. That poor start, he's really not been able to work his way up since then, so it's proving to be a difficult afternoon. On board with Bobby Rahal briefly, but Bobby's running quite a long way down the order. We saw him in the pits earlier, and he's running in 22nd position, and his teammate Brian Herter running in 14th, so it's not an ideal start to the championship for Team Rahal so far. But for Gilles de Ferran, a new team for the 1997 season, and so far so good, but don't forget, we're still in the very early stages yet. We're not quite at 1/3 distance as de Ferran, there he is, in the Valvoline car, continues to lead.
Doing a wonderful job out in front, really maintaining a very, very good pace. They're lapping mainly in the 31s second bracket, maybe 32s, particularly when they get some slower cars, but just doing a fine job taking care of the car. We're coming up now to the pit stop window. Under green, let's say somewhere between 39 and 45 laps, I expect the leaders to be into the pits. We're now on lap 39 as Gilles de Ferran comes up here to take the flag. That's 39 laps in the book, so pretty soon now will be first pit stops, but what a fine job he's doing. And there is Michael Andretti into second place ahead of Alex Zanardi.
Yes, there's been a change. We haven't seen it on screen, but we can tell you from our timing monitors that Andretti is now in second place and Zanardi back to third. But don't forget the pit stops are coming up. It could all change around from that. Vasser is in fourth place, Johnston is in fifth, and then Greg Moore in sixth place. But for the moment, the Brazilian Gilles de Ferran, a former British Formula 3 champion when he was driving for the Paul Stewart racing team, and had a long association with that team, a long association with Jackie Stewart as well, and was even considered and talked about as a possible Formula 1 driver for Jackie Stewart. He decided to stay over here in the United States. He's put together a great package with the Walker Racing team, and there on board with Jimmy Vasser, you could see there, Jeremy, he was having to work the wheel quite hard, but we're into the first round of pit stops. This is Christian Fittipaldi, and Christian was running quite a long way down the order. He had a bad start as well. He's in 19th position as he comes into the pits, and let's watch this first round of stops there. Pits quite a long way down as the team goes to work. Limited number of mechanics allowed on the car, or is there a problem here? Look at the man at the front.
No, that's just the CART official making sure there's not too many people around.
Well, something wrong, yeah. I don't know quite what he's wearing, but something at the back of the car, perhaps. Christian doesn't seem to know that. His body language seems to indicate he's not quite sure what's going on here. So a little bit of confusion there as to exactly what the problem is. Christian Fittipaldi was in a little bit early, so perhaps some sort of mechanical problem. And it's possible, of course, he may have been leaking some sort of fluid. That may have been the reason, and he may have been called in by the CART officials.
That's very true. You know, on these ovals, the slightest problem there is on the track, anybody dropping just a slightest bit of fluid, they will throw the yellow flag or they will black flag the car.
So Gilles de Ferran leads, 42 laps completed out of 148 now. There's a great shot of the track, this sort of rectangular shape. We keep calling it an oval, but when you look at it, it's much more of a rectangle with 4 distinct corners, and quite different to some of the other oval tracks where turns 1 and 2 are really blended into one long sweeping corner. And for the drivers, in fact, it makes life a little bit difficult. It's not the most popular circuit, this one, amongst the different drivers. They feel that it's a little bit dangerous in its layout. If the car goes wrong midway through the corner, then they're headed straight for the wall. Christian Fittipaldi there does look, Jeremy, as though it is the end of his day.
Yeah, what a shame for Christian Fittipaldi. Michael Andretti, however, his teammate, is just flying. He's setting some very fast laps. He's just over a couple of seconds behind Gilles de Ferran, and his last lap here, 30.5. He's flying. There comes Parker Johnstone, running in 5th position in for his first scheduled stop.
So this is the Team Green car, the team of Barry Green, Tony Cicali, who's the engineer, the team that ran Jacques Villeneuve a couple of years ago. Let's watch this pit stop. The fuel goes in the overhead hose. Remember, it's a methanol fuel that goes aboard an Indy car. They run on methanol rather than petrol, and in fact they're much more thirsty running on methanol, so they have to put even more fuel aboard the cars. Pretty good stop though. They've got the tyres changed, 12.3 seconds.
Excellent stop. Anything around about 12 seconds, less than 13 seconds is an excellent stop. That's 35 gallons of methanol fuel in the car, 4 tyre change, and of course they're only allowed 5 men over the wall to do that service, unlike in Formula 1 where you have 16, 17 people sometimes working on the car.
Oh, that looks like Dario Franchitti has had a nasty looking accident there. Can't quite see which corner that's on at the moment, but Dario Franchitti, and looks like he's got his hands up. That's a good sign. That was a good sign. He's ripped off the rear corner of the car, and the Scotsman, in his first ever race on an oval track, he has become the first victim of the wall here this afternoon.
The exit of turn 2 there, Dario hit the wall. We didn't see the accident happen. He seems to be fine. The safety car, the safety team right there on the job immediately. They'll be making sure he is okay. We can see the mark on the wall. He hits the turn 2.
Let's see if we can find out what happened here, John. Well, he's up on the grey stuff very early in the corner. Oh, and that really was. Now, that's exactly what I was just talking about. The nature of these corners means when it goes wrong, they do hit the wall at a nasty angle. Although, in fact, it wasn't that bad an angle. It hit the rear really more than the front initially. It would have been a hell of a shock. The impact would have been a big shock to Dario, but I would say hopefully that he will be unhurt from that. There he is. Oh, great to see. Wonderful. Dario stepping out of the car, and his first race here in the United States ends in dramatic fashion, but it is not an easy way. Let's just listen to what happened to Christian Fittipaldi.
What the problem was, Christian?
There was a big oil leak in the engine, and then they black flagged me because of the oil leak, and that's the way it goes on the rule books. It's unfortunate because the car was handling perfect. I did a very bad start. I just took it very easy. I was afraid of some accidents, and then I was really passing people on the track, which was very difficult here. And I think I was from like 16th, 17th up to 10th, and you guys can see how also Mike is going pretty good. So I was really optimistic of finishing in the top 3 today. The car and the race conditions was handling perfect.
So guys, no question, even though he's out, thus far the jury is in terms of the performance of the new Swift, and it gets an A.
Now, we are under yellow flag. The pit lane is closed at the moment, but in a moment or two, when the CART officials decide, they will open the pit lane, and the drivers who are on the lead lap will be able to come into the pit. So we are expecting a lot of pit stops coming up. Pit stops are due very soon, with Gilles de Ferran leading this race. Andretti in second, coming into the pits. Michael Andretti coming into the pits now. Andretti in, and these are some very important stops coming up. Operation continues after Dario Franchitti's accident into the wall. Thankfully, we've seen Dario stepping away. He's unhurt, and cars into the pit lane, although it hasn't really changed the order very much. Let me tell you that as they've come back out, Gilles de Ferran still leading, so a clean stop for him. Michael Andretti in second place, Alex Zanardi in third. What has happened is that Paul Tracy's popped up to fourth because he has stayed out there. So that's
the faster cars on the inside.
But this was a new thing that was introduced last year, because in the past everybody basically lined up together, so you had a lot of back markers in between the leaders, didn't you?
Yeah, and you often didn't have the leader at the front of the pack, and one of the things now, they want to make it more understandable for the people in the grandstand, and for us too.
Absolutely.
The leader is at the front of the pack.
Yeah, so let's see, there we are again. The cars on the inside there, they're the leading pack. The cars on the outside are cars that are a lap down or more. So when the race gets underway again, watch the inside line of cars to see the battle for the leading positions. De Ferran versus Andretti versus Zanardi. And don't forget that Paul Tracy, the winner really of the pit stop competition that we saw just now, he's lying in fourth place. As we go on board, looks like with Scott Pruitt, he's down, or it could be Raul Bozelli's teammate. They're running 8th and 9th. 1 lap to go, so we're going to go green at the end of this lap. and so the adrenaline builds up once again, and we're about to get this race underway. 58 laps are completed. There are 90 laps still to go, and can Gilles de Ferran hold on to this lead that he's established in the early part of the race? Of course, they're all closed up to each other now. The race will really and truly be on now. Up towards the back straight now, as the pace car just continues to lead them round. And the question is now, what this reminds me is last year when Gilles de Ferran at a restart actually got blown away by Jimmy Vasser, but it caused some contention, didn't it?
Well, what was interesting last year was before we brought in these new rule changes. So for the restart, those two were back in the pack, and as they came up for the restart, the race leader de Ferran was held up by a slower car, and that's what allowed Jimmy to get the run. That's one of the reasons they changed the rules. Now the leader should be able to get a clear run coming off the corner.
So here we go. Their foot are hard down on the gas as they come out of turn 4. The restart gets underway. Gilles de Ferran, Michael Andretti and Alex Zanardi, the first three. Zanardi's got a good start. Zanardi now having a little look down the inside, but deciding against it into turn 1. So the order remains the same amongst the top 3, with de Ferran already opening up a little advantage. Michael Andretti got caught napping a little bit. It looked to me as though Gilles went to go, then just backed off a little bit, and then went again. Classic stuff. That's all part of the strategy, all part of clever thinking on the part of the driver. De Ferran was able to thus open up a gap over Michael Andretti. Meanwhile, Paul Tracy in 4th place has got to get past the lapped car now of Parker Johnston. But as we know, Johnston was running very quickly earlier, so that could cause him a problem because they'll be running at more or less, I should think, the same pace.
Great restart there for de Ferran. Once again, the advantage of clear track in front of him. He'll be trying to put a little bit of daylight between himself and Andretti before, maybe in sort of 15-20 laps, they come up again to some slower traffic. We've got 10 cars on the lead lap there, with Patrick Carpentier still holding up that the last of the guys on the lead lap. Parker Johnson, the first of those, a lap down, followed by Brian Herter, and all the way down to 20th place, so just 1 lap down. So there's a lot of racing here to go this afternoon.
There is indeed, as Gilles de Ferran continues to lead, and just now really stabilising the gap between himself and Michael Andretti. Now you're watching the Canadian, Paul Tracy, the very aggressive racer that he is, Paul Tracy. He's been through a few changes over the last few years, very much a Penske man. It was Roger Penske who gave him the opportunity in this form of racing to really make a name for himself. He started out as the test driver for the team and then was gradually incorporated into the team. And don't forget, a few years ago, 94, the dream team when we had Alonso Jr., Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy all driving for Penske, and they basically dominated that season of racing. A remarkable performance by the whole team. Since then, they haven't seen that same level of dominance, and we're still to perhaps see the best of Paul Tracy. We still need to see him string together a consistent set of results over the course of a championship. There's no doubt on his day that he can be a very, very tough driver to beat. Lying in that 4th position at the moment, and not far away from the back of Alex Zanardi's car now. And Tracy may just decide to see how the car feels, what's going on. Parker Johnson is in fact still separating him from Zanardi. There is Tracy, the green and white car of Johnston, a lap down just ahead. But Tracy looking very, very promising indeed as we go through this race.
Yeah, you know, it's not impossible to make up a lap here. Certainly last year, Greg Moore managed to do that. He fell a lap off when he was penalised for overtaking the pace car, in fact, which was a little bit of a quirky sort of a thing, but he was a lap down. He made up that lap. He passed Jimmy Vasser under green flag conditions and ran away from him the last half of the race. It was a tremendous performance. So, you know, even these guys like Parker Johnson, they're not out of it yet. There's a lot of strategy can be played out yet this afternoon.
Michael Andretti closing up a little bit again to Gilles de Ferran as the lap continues. It's down to half a second, the gap between these two. And now Michael Andretti begins to just ease a little bit closer to the back of Gilles de Ferran's car. You're watching there Maurizio Gugelmin in 6th place. Scott Pruitt is lying 7th. Greg Moore is 8th. Carpentier 9th. Raoul Boesel in 10th place. Mark Blundell, by the way, he's down in 13th position at the moment. He's 2 laps down on the race leader. Well, in fact, no, 1 lap down. 1 lap down at the moment on the race leader. But obviously a difficult afternoon for him. But he's still there, and if he can keep in there, there's bound to be more incidents as we go through the race, and he may well be able to pick off some of the other runners in that top part. Now let's just have a look. This was Gugelmin going past Jimmy Vasser by the looks of it. Vasser actually locking the brakes, and there for a change you actually see how hard they're braking on this track. It's not a case of going flat out all the way around. They really do get on the anchors, and there you could see when Vasser got it a bit wrong, he had to get on the anchors a bit too hard and locked it all up.
Yeah, that's not a good move. That'll flat spot these tyres very quickly indeed. You do not want to abuse these tyres. Jimmy Vasser certainly did that there, so it's going to be interesting to see now how he copes with that scenario over the next few laps. He's certainly lost a lot of ground.
You can almost begin to see a little small shake on the steering wheel, perhaps. That's how he will feel it. That's what flat spotting a tyre means. It means the tyre is not totally round. You get a real bumpy feeling, as if your wheels are out of balance, and he'll be feeling that now through the steering column. A lot of vibration in the car, and when you're doing speeds over 200 miles an hour, that sort of vibration can become a real problem. It also puts strain on other parts of the car as well as the driver. So Vasser now in 6th position, but that means that for the rest of this stint on these tyres, he could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, that's going to be hard work indeed for him. You can see, as you say there, the shake on the wheel. And we can actually hear him lifting off, coming off the fourth corner there. He's certainly dropping back quite considerably from Mauricio Gugelmin. He's now 5.5 seconds behind him. That's in only 4 laps, so losing a second a lap. He's quickly going to be coming to the clutches there of Scott Pruitt, who's in...
Oh, we've got another car off.
Gilles de Ferran.
That's Gilles de Ferran. That's our race leader. Gilles de Ferran is out. He's lost it and he's crashed into the wall. What drama again. And it looks as though there was maybe a back marker.
Michael?
I don't know. I can't see who that is.
No, it's not. There goes Michael past.
Right, so Michael's still there. It looks as though Gilles, the gesture he gave was, what on earth were you doing? Sort of a gesture to whoever else that is, and hopefully we'll get an idea in a moment as to who he's tangled with. But poor old Gilles, what is going on here? Let's have a look here. See if we can work out what happened. He's on the coming down on 2 cars there, and the second car just shut him down. Dennis Vitolo it was, and he just obviously didn't know that de Ferran was there, but Gilles perfectly justified in waving his arms like that. What on earth? Gilles de Ferran trying to go through on the inside. Vitolo, well, he was already turning into the corner. He hadn't realised somebody else was there. He'd let one car go through, and he didn't know that de Ferran was there. Turned in, and he's taken them both out. There is Dennis Vitolo's car, and well, what a disappointing way to end the race for de Ferran. And what an amazing weekend it's been to him. That's 2 big accidents into the wall now.
Yeah, that's a great shame. You know, very much a journeyman driver, I'm afraid, Dennis Vitolo. Incidentally, a former teammate of Mauricio Gugelmin for Dennis Russian's team in Formula Ford 2000 back in the middle 80s. But Dennis, you know, that's his first race in quite a while, and he's dicing there with one of the Toyota cars. That was actually Max Papis. But, you know, he's 6 laps down. He should have been paying a lot more attention than that.
Of course, you can see, yes, he's let Papis go through, and then as they come into the corner, he's just squeezed down, and de Ferran was quite a long way down on the inside. He obviously wasn't aware at all that he was there.
No, I tell you what happened there, I think, is that Papis seemed to slow down much more than Vitolo anticipated, and Vitolo, he can't stand on the brakes to that instant because he's going to crash himself. So he was rather put into that situation, I feel, by Max Papis, and he had to turn to jink to the inside. He's not going to jink to the outside because then he's going to crash. He has to try and jink to the inside and keep control of the car, and unfortunately, de Ferran was already there.
Well, disaster for Derek Walker. What a shame. I mean, Gilles been doing so well here this afternoon. Everything was going his way. What it means now is that Michael Andretti, believe it or not, is the leader of this race from 14th place on the grid. So there you go. That's how important the qualifying is, because he now leads this race. Zanardi is 2nd. Paul Tracy is 3rd. We're under yellow flags, of course. It's the 2nd yellow flag period of the day. Mauricio Gugelmin is lying 4th. Jimmy Vasser is 5th, as we just joined Vasser in that 5th place, and we'll take the opportunity to take a break from the race here at Homestead. Years ago, and here we are. He's back into the championship, and the first race of the new season. He takes out the leader of the race. Amazing.
He's not going to be the most popular man around, is he? I think Nigel will certainly sympathise there with Gilles de Ferran. Although, as we said a little bit earlier, I think Max Papis was certainly as much involved in that as we see here on the replay. They're coming out onto the back straightaway here as Gilles de Ferran. He sees the 2 cars up in front of him. There goes Papis down the inside. He goes past Vitolo, but look how much Papis slowed up, and it certainly took Vitolo by surprise.
And listen to that noise, Jeremy, when it hits the wall. I mean, the bang, even though he'd taken off quite a lot of speed there because the car was on the brakes, it was all locked up, but when you hit the wall, it really does make a big bang, doesn't it?
Doesn't it just? And, you know, there's de Ferran hanging on again. That's the 2nd time in 2 days. He won't be he knows what it feels, and he doesn't like it. Just out of the corner of the screen now, I couldn't help but notice, I think it was Jimmy Vasser, only just missed the spinning car of Dennis Vitolo there, and I think he got through unscathed, but boy, that was pretty close. Vitolo climbing out of the car, as we see in the pits. So those two are both out of the race now, and Andretti out in front, and boy, is he looking strong.
He is, isn't he? This the new car, the Swift chassis that's been put together in the States. This is, we're looking back a little bit, what happened the other day. This was on Thursday when some of the drivers took the opportunity to enjoy a little bit of a Harley-Davidson ride from the center of Miami down to the circuit here, and it's good to see a nice parade of rather splendid looking motorcycles. A bit of a cloudy day that day. I'm glad to say that it's got a bit more sunny since then here just outside Miami in the sunshine state of Florida, and of course a bit of it's beautiful weather. It's been absolutely gorgeous since we've been over here. Jeremy, you've been living in the States now for 12 years. Of course, last year they didn't really have very seasonal weather here for the race, did they?
It was miserable down here, Ben. It really was. It was overcast and this sort of drizzle in the air. It was very, very strange, and a lot of the time we were just waiting for the weather to clear. We had a long red flag period. It wasn't really raining. It was just sort of misting. It was very, very strange. Most unseasonal for this part of the world, but it's more than making up for it this weekend, and boy, what a race we got on our hands, haven't we?
Tremendous, really, so much action going on at the moment. We've got another little breather. You can look at the road circuit, by the way, down the inside of the field there, the inside of the banking. They use that road circuit as well here. Yesterday we had a race that combined a bit of the oval track and a bit of the road circuit as well, and then we've got that rather picturesque little lake on the inside. Often there are lakes around the oval tracks because they use the earth and the whatever from what then forms the lake to form the banking around the outside of the track.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, we're talking of the banking here. Ralph Sanchez, the proprietor of this facility, is actually going to be rebuilding this track over the summer, and they're going to make constant radius corners at each end of this racetrack. So rather than 4 distinct corners, as we can see quite clearly here, he's going to even out those 2 corners on either end and make it one long arc, and that's an enormous amount of landfill that's got to be brought in to make those changes. I think something like $6 million is the anticipated cost of those changes, so that's absolutely astronomical. It's just, he really wants to, they're doing it in order to try and promote closer racing and just make it more easier for people to make overtaking maneuvers. Nowadays it's very much a one groove track in this 4-cornered layout, and they think by going by longer corners that they will make it a little bit easier to overtake.
Yes, it's such an important facility here. It's in an area that was actually hit by a hurricane a few years ago, and as you look around the surrounding scenery, you can see it's fairly bleak in some ways. It's really in the middle of nowhere, this track. We're about 30 minutes drive from Miami itself, so not that far away, but the actual area that we're in is number 77. We're virtually at half distance now. Lap number 78, Andretti goes on to, and he leads from Alex Zanardi, who in fact is third on the road. You've got the white and green car of Parker Johnston up there he's actually lying in 10th place. He's a lap down. Zanardi is in 2nd position in the red car. Paul Tracy is in 3rd. Gugelmin 4th. Scott Pruitt is in 5th. Then it's Greg Moore. Patrick Carpentier has moved up to 7th place now with Jimmy Vasser coming in. Then it's Raul Boesel, and Jimmy Vasser is now in a 9th position, and we'll have to watch that. Could be interesting. Perhaps if we have some more yellow flag periods, that really could play into Jimmy Vasser's hands. There you can see the top positions, and moving now up into a point scoring position is Mark Blundell. He's now in 12th place.
And challenging Brian Herter as they went into turn 1 there. I'm not sure whether he made the pass or not. I don't think he did, but going well there, Mark Blundell. He's into his stride now. He feels much more comfortable, more confident.
Joe Farron, after running so well, so strong, to have it end this way, your feelings?
It's so tragic, it's almost funny. I mean, it's a real shame. I mean, I've been happy with the car ever since Friday morning practice started. The car was running really well. I was running at my own pace, and when the restart happened, I was pacing myself quite well in front of Andretti, and then we came to lap some back markers. I was beside the guy going into turn 3, and I can only think he never saw me because I was beside him and he just turned in, hit the side of my car, and I couldn't control it, and I spun off and hit the wall.
Well, guys, one of the things about kart racing is the fact that Brazilians speak to Brazilian television live. So now now, instead of answering in English, Gil de Ferran answers in Portuguese.
So Gil de Ferran obviously very disappointed after that accident that's seen him go out of the lead of this race, and well, he's just going to have to fight back in round 2 of the championship in Surfers Paradise. But a disappointing way to start the season. You're riding on board with Scott Pruitt at the moment, and Scott Pruitt's running well. You can see there he's in 5th position now. He's not far behind Maurizio Gugelmin, and Scott Pruitt, in some ways, I always sort of think of him as a bit of the quiet man of the championship. He's not a sort of loud name, or a big name, not a loud man, but he really does get the job done. He was competitive here last year as well.
Yeah, a great effort. He's really brought his game up these last couple of years.
So, across the line, Scott Pruitt, as you can see, best finish here was 4th last year, and with a very good team this season, there's no doubt. It's the same team owner, Pat Patrick, still involved in running the car, and he's joined by Raul Boesel in the team. So 2 very competitive drivers, there's no doubt about that, and running the Ford Cosworth engine, which seems to be working better and better, and they've gradually moved up throughout the course of the afternoon. Teammate Raul Boesel lying in 8th position, but Scott Pruitt in 5th place and looking now very strong.
Great win a couple of years ago at Michigan. It was his first CART victory. But you know what's really interesting to me is that Scott Pruitt last year, he really improved his game in qualifying. Prior to that, his qualifying had been a little bit suspect. He was obviously often left himself a lot of work to do as he goes past Mark Blundell, who's 1 lap down, but still in 12th position and chasing Brian Herter. But back to Scott Pruitt, he really improved a lot last year. He qualified. I think his qualifying record was actually beaten only by the 2 Target Jeep Ganassi cars, Jimmy Vasser and Alex Zanardi, and over the whole season. He had his first pole in Detroit, and he's racing a lot more aggressively as well when he needs to be aggressive. He's got that good mix of aggression and patience, and he's really come a long way as Scott Pruitt.
Interesting to see. We've had a couple of drivers, like Parker Johnson in a way, who's come up from the IMSA Championships, the Sports Car Series. Scott Pruitt, slightly different to championships, but still they've come up through those other ranks. We don't always see that in Europe so much. Normally, by the time people go into sports cars, they're very much defined in that role. But here in America, it does seem that you can race other categories of racing, for example, the IMSA Lights Championship, whatever, and then still be able to move into the top rank of single-seater racing.
Absolutely. Scott Pruitt, he had several years out. He won the Trans Am Championship a couple of times. He had a horrible accident at the beginning of the 1990 season, which he had to sit out. A testing accident actually up in Florida, West Palm. He had a complete brake failure. The front of the car was absolutely wiped out. His legs were very badly damaged. His back was broken as well. And he's done a fantastic job to come back from those injuries. He's now very much a front-line driver.
Watching Patrick Carpentier at the moment in 7th place, and what an impressive run this is from the French-Canadian, really doing a superb job as well. As Greg Moore, you've just got him at the bottom of the picture, he's the man running in 6th place. So Carpentier not far away, the 2 Canadians, although they come from different sides of Canada. Carpentier from Quebec and Greg Moore is from British Columbia. Greg Moore into his 2nd season as Carpentier starts his CART career, shall we say. Just a quick explanation there, Jeremy, also on the name of the championship. We must keep referring to it, of course, as the CART Championship this year. There's been a slight change around. CART stands for Championship Auto Race Teams. It's a name that actually has been around in this form of motorsport for quite a few years, isn't it?
Formed in 1978. There's wheel to wheel there. It goes Raul Boesel. It goes past that other car. I'm not quite sure who it was. I wasn't paying attention. I must admit. I think it might have been. No, he's behind Gugelmin. It was a lap car, I think, of Brian Herter. And a bit of a narrow squeak there for Scott Pruitt, but gets through safely on his way, still in 5th place and trying to chase down Maurizio Gugelmin. But yes, formed by a group of team owners in 1978, Roger Penske, Pat Patrick, Jim Hall, Carl Haas was all amongst that group, and they broke away from USAC, United States Auto Club, which was the traditional sanctioning body for IndyCar racing as it was then. And you know, the group of owners, CART, Championship Auto Racing Teams, has done a phenomenal job in increasing the visibility of this sport. It's now a big sport in North America.
Well, we can still call the cars Indy cars, as it's all as a result of a legal case that's going on with a different series in the United States, so we have to refer to it as the CART Championship. Very different, of course, to, as we know, karts in Europe, which is a very different form of motorsport. Let's get back to the race, though. Bobby Rahal, we're enjoying the on-board ride with Bobby Rahal at the moment. Quite a long way down the order. He's in 17th position after earlier problems, but now the car seems to be running very, very well. Of course, there have been more changes for Bobby over the winter. He switched from Mercedes engines to Ford engines, but he's still a very competitive driver. The elder statesman, if you like, of the Indy drivers now. At 44 years old, I believe, 3 times he's already been champion. But I wouldn't put too much money against him not winning a race this year.
Absolutely, it's been a long time since he won. He hasn't won a race since 1992 when he last won the championship, but he is raring to go this year. He was very confident coming into this race meeting. I'm surprised actually that he's had problems, because I thought they'd worked that car out, and they was very comfortable with how it was running on full tank. So that's a surprise to me, but no question Bobby Rahal is going to be strong as this season progresses.
Yes, both cars seem to be rather further down the order than we had expected, with teammate Brian Herter down there in 12th place. But of course, the very different types of tracks that we go through on the course of the championship. There you can see the top positions after 91 laps out of 148. Michael Andretti is leading by 2.8 seconds from Zanardi. Tracy a little further back. On board with Scott Pruitt, still running in 5th position. And the race for the moment has just settled down a little bit. We've got fairly consistent gaps up at the top end of the places, with Andretti leading still by, just as I say, 3.4 seconds. He's opened it up a little bit. Tracy 3rd, then Pruitt that little bit further back. So at the moment, Jeremy, no really close battles going on.
That's true. The best battle, I think, is back for 6th, 7th and 8th places there, with the 2 Canadians, Moore and Carpentier, and also with them there is Raoul Boisel. So that's a good little dice for 6th, 7th and 8th. But up at the front there, Michael Andretti running very consistent laps. A couple of laps ago, he had to lap a couple of slower cars. That cost him a little bit of ground, but that car is really running nicely, that Swift. And Michael Andretti is well in control of this race at the moment. His gap now is actually out to 4.8 seconds, and Paul Tracy another 4 seconds back in 3rd place. But we're still only, not quite 2/3 the way through this race. There's plenty of time yet.
That's right, and often it seems to be the way that a race like this, it seems to settle down for a little while. We've had various bits of drama already. We've had the accident of Dario Franchitti. We've had the accident to the race leader, Gilles de Ferran. High drama at some points, but it now settled down. Quite often we see this for a while, and then all of a sudden it begins to build up again as we get into the latter stages of the race, as the top players really start to put the pressure on. Paul Tracy there, by the way, running in 3rd place and just putting another lap on one of the Toyota-powered cars. But Scott Pruitt that little bit closer to him before they got past the car. Perhaps Tracy just being held up a little bit before that.
Well, Boisel has just got past Mauricio Gugelmin last time around. We didn't actually see it on camera, but he is now up into 4th place with Scott Pruitt there, and he's setting his sights now on Paul Tracy, see if he can get a podium position away from the young Canadian.
So Gugelmin not quite able to run at the same pace as Pruitt at the moment, as Pruitt getting amongst those back markers once more. And just looks like he's going past the Mexican driver there, Michel Jourdain, who's coming into his first full season of the championship as well. But back with Paul Tracy, this battle that continues for 3rd position as it is. Nobody can quite stay with Michael Andretti up front, but Scott Pruitt's doing a good job of keeping Paul Tracy honest at the moment. Only the one Penske still in the race, of course. Those problems to Alonso Jr. very early on in the whole thing, and that was very disappointing for the team. But Paul Tracy still running very competitively. He'd only need a little problem up front, and Tracy would be still in with a chance of winning this race. Of course, last year he led it and went out himself with transmission problems, so you never know. Perhaps the luck would be reversed this time.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. We're talking about strategy a little bit, and that pit stop by Jimmy Vasser. Everybody is going to have to make one more pit stop, including Jimmy Vasser. But what's very interesting is that Jimmy Vasser is running the same sort of pace really as the leaders. If there is another yellow with, say, less than 40 laps to go, everybody will have to make one more pit stop. But Jimmy Vasser will have to take on less fuel than the other guys. And those couple of seconds or 3 or 4 seconds that he might save during that pit stop could turn out to be very critical indeed. We'll have to wait and see.
Jimmy Vasser lying in 9th place at the moment, so just keep an eye on his positions as they come up on screen. Vasser in 9th, Parker Johnston is in 10th place, Richie Hearn is 11th, then Brian Herter 12th, and Mark Blundell, he's still there, he's in 13th position. As behind him we've got Andre Ribeiro and Gualter Sales amongst others. Down on the pit wall looks like Roberto Moreno down there. get themselves sorted out, and by the time we get to round 2 of the championship, Roberto Moreno will become one of the main players again. Had a good result in Michigan last year, Roberto Moreno. He's such an experienced driver as well. He's done just about a bit of everything, and he surely will be competitive if he gets in the right car.
Yeah, that was a great result at Michigan. That wasn't a lucky third place at all. He was the fastest man on the track at the end of that race. He was running year-old engines in that car, and he was the fastest man on the track, running laps at 233 miles an hour. He was right behind Jimmy Vasser, giving Jimmy Vasser all he could handle at the end of that race. It was a great drive by Roberto Moreno.
Michael Andretti leads here after 101 laps. We've got 47 laps to go, and it's still the Newman-Haas Swift driver, Andretti, who has a 4-second lead over Alex Zanardi in second place. Zanardi, who took pole position by just 25 thousandths of a second yesterday, but not quite able to maintain the lead pace so far. Then it's these two cars. Paul Tracy lying in third place, Scott Pruitt behind him in fourth, and this gap has just been seesawing a little bit over the last few laps. Very little to choose between these two completely different cars. You've got a Penske up ahead with the Mercedes engine and Goodyear tyres, and behind him you've got a Reynard with a Ford engine and Firestone tyres. Two completely different packages and running almost identical lap times. So it just goes to prove how competitive, how close the whole championship is going to be this year.
It's going to be a tremendous contest, and here we are starting it off on just the right foot. You know, there was a lot of concern there was going to be a lot of yellows in this race. I think we've only had the two, so you know that's fine. That's par for the course, I would say, and nothing too serious. It's certainly a concern on this kind of a race that the speeds are so high. But it's a great race, and it's really setting a super tone for the season, I would suggest.
It is, and of course it's a very different type of circuit they'll be going to next. We're riding on board, though, with race leader. He's had a little bit of a lonely time up there for a while, but it's still Michael Andretti. He's looking good so far. Welcome back to Homestead. Alex Zanardi coming into the pits. We've just seen Michael Andretti come in and go back out. Maurizio Gugelmin there, just coming back out as well. Alex Zanardi now stopping. Paul Tracy is the leader at the moment as the pit stops, the second round of pit stops. This should be the last pit stop for these guys. Goes underway. The Chip Ganassi team goes to work with Alex Zanardi. Now they've got to get this car working well so that he can finish off the race. There's a problem on the right rear. Oh, it's taking. There's still a problem on the right rear. I don't believe it. Alex Zanardi is not having a good day at all. The clock is ticking away. He's dropping further and further down the top 10. It's disaster for Alex Zanardi as he comes out finally after a long pit stop. And we'll have to see at the end of the next lap exactly how far down he is. That looks like Max Papis in trouble, and that's going to bring out a full course yellow. Now I wonder who hasn't yet stopped. Paul Tracy hasn't yet stopped. He may be able to take big advantage here if there's a full course yellow. That car stopped on the pit lane exit by the look of it. Now whether they will go full course yellow or not, we'll have to wait and see. Keeping an eye out on the start line here. At the moment it doesn't look as though we've got a yellow flag yet, so perhaps they'll be able to hold off with the car down there and not actually put out the yellow flag at all. So Tracy is our race leader. Now his Papis trying to get somebody to come along and give him some assistance as we see Tracy just coming around in a moment to complete another lap. No, it has gone full course yellow. Well, there, not surprising really, I suppose.
No, that's a pretty inconsiderate place for Max Papis to stop. That's pretty unnecessary. If his car is out of fuel, which is potentially the problem or some other kind of a problem, he really should have pulled that car out of the way, which he can easily do on this racetrack. What he's trying to do though is keep himself in the race, and hopefully they'll tow him back to the pits. He'll be able to put some fuel in, he'll carry on, but that's pretty poor sportsmanship, I think, from Max Papis, and that's cost a lot of people a chance to win this race. Great strategy though by the Penske crew. As soon as they saw what the problem was, they'll bet the radio to Paul Tracy, turn the fuel mixture right down, lead it out, go as long as you can. We think we're going to go yellow, and then we're going to be in great shape. At the moment there's only 3 cars on the lead lap, and that is car number 3 Paul Tracy, Greg Moore and Jimmy Vasser.
Jimmy Vasser, yes, the man who put in an extra stop. This could be to his advantage as well, but as you say, Jeremy, because of the way this has been called with the yellow flag coming right in the middle of the pit stops, this is absolutely crucial, and it's looking good for Paul Tracy and Greg Moore at the moment, neither of them having stopped yet. When the pit lane opens under the yellow flag, they'll be able to make their stops, and they will then be able to come back out in front. Well, it's an interesting scenario. poor old Alex Zanardi lost out a lot. He's rejoined in 7th position as a result of that very, very slow stop.
Yeah, he's actually kind of fortunate, really, because with the yellow coming out there, he was lucky not to lose more time than that.
Just looking at the sign, now this means the pit lane is open for the cars on the lead lap, this big sort of plus sign. That's shown down at the end of the backstretch, and that means that they are now allowed into the pit lane.
Yeah, what they do, they wait till the pack is up behind the pace car, so everybody is together, everybody gets the same opportunity to make a pit stop. The reason they kept it out as long as they could, and I'm sure that will cause some consternation for some of these guys who must be running very, very low on fuel, but the reason they kept the no pit sign out there was because Max Papis was parked smack in the middle of a pit road entry lane there, so that's why they had to wait before making that pit stop. But here comes Paul Tracy now peeling off into the pit lane, and he'll be joined by Greg Moore and by Jimmy Vasser, the race leader.
Yes, you can see Jimmy Vasser just coming in now as well. So this is a crucial time. Paul Tracy coming into the pits now. We can see the Penske crew ready, and of course they're not under quite such a rush, but this is still a very important stop because of course they're racing against.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very, very much crucial pit stop. He wants to get out and make sure he stays out ahead of the other two contenders there.
I think he has. Looking at the reaction of the crew, it looks as though Paul Tracy is, yes, he's ahead of Greg Moore. He runs down the pit lane on the speed limit. It looks so slow, Jeremy, as we look over across the top of the grandstand, the speed comparison. They can only do 60 miles an hour down the pits. Looks very different to when they're doing 200 miles an hour past us on the start-finish straight. But Paul Tracy comes out in front as Jimmy Vasser also rejoins. Now, I think Vasser may have got out ahead of Moore, and we'll find out in just a moment. Welcome back to Homestead. Still under yellow flag conditions at the moment with 33 laps to go. And as they've sorted themselves out, it still appears that Michael Andretti is in front, which has left us somewhat confused as well as everybody else, because it looked to us as though it was good news for Tracy, Vasser and Moore. They are indeed in 2nd, 3rd and 4th places, but somehow or other, Michael Andretti has been able to maintain his lead position.
Well, yeah, I think what must have happened is it was difficult for us to see here from our vantage point, but when he came out of the pits, Michael Andretti, having made that scheduled stop, he was obviously able to get out just ahead of the race leader. So he was within a couple of ticks of going a lap down, is all I can think of. And then when the other people came in the pits, of course, he was able to cycle on through. I must admit, I thought he got a lap down, but clearly he hasn't. He must have come out just ahead of the race leader.
Yes, it must have been a very marginal call. He must have just got out in front. It was a good stop that they made, but amazing that he's managed to hold on to the lead. Of course, he's now in a very strong position, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's at the front of the field. We know he's got one of the fastest cars here, and clearly he's going to take a heck of a lot of beating right now.
Well, we're riding with Scott Pruitt. He's down in 5th position at the moment. Again, you've got the cars on the lead lap nearest the camera, so it's Andretti leading. Tracy's now in 2nd place. Vasser is in 3rd. Vasser, they made a good stop with the Chip Ganassi team because it moved him ahead of Greg Moore. So that could be an interesting little tussle there. Greg Moore's still in 4th place. He's in the blue and white car. Then you've got Scott Pruitt, the onboard camera we saw a moment ago. Then it's Maurizio Gugelmin in 6th. Alex Zanardi in 7th place as a result of that awful pit stop where they just couldn't get the right rear tyre on. Then it's Raul Boesel in 8th, Parker Johnson 9th, and Patrick Carpentier in 10th place. So there you can see the positions at the moment. Andretti leads, Tracy 2nd, Vasser, Moore, Pruitt, and they've got Alex Zanardi in 6th. That's right now. Yes, he is in 6th position on our screen as well. So while they've sorted out, because what happened was the timing of when the yellow flag actually was thrown, it was confused because various people were making pit stops, and it looks as though perhaps Zanardi and Gugelmin have ended up swapping around as a result of that as well. We'll have to have a look. Yes, you see Zanardi's been allowed. Let's just have a look here to see what exactly is going on. Zanardi up on the outside there, and let's just see whether he's been allowed to move up a little bit. I think there was a bit of sorting out to be done purely by when that yellow flag was thrown in the middle of the pit stops. That upset the scenario a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a very curious situation there. He's cycled past, he's gone past Pruitt and Gugelmin there, and has now taken up 5th position. But albeit one lap down, he'll be trying to regain that lead lap as soon as we go green here, starting on the outside line. It's a tall order. but we'll see whether he can pull that one off when we go back to green in just a few laps. There was the cross flags there from Jim Swintal, the starter, and probably just a couple more laps before we go back to green flag racing, and we'll have just 30 laps to the end of this race, a little bit less than 30 laps to go.
Yes, so Zanardi on that outside line. He is likely to be a lap down. Now, if he can get a good start here, it's very important to him to try and be ahead of Michael Andretti, because he's then got a chance of getting back onto the lead lap. All the drivers up to or down to 5th place, 5th and backwards, are now a lap down or more. We've only got the 4 cars on the lead lap. That's Andretti, Tracy, Vassar and Moore. Yeah. And this is going to be some restart, I think, when it gets underway.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of confusion here, I must admit. I think there's certainly some confusion amongst the drivers here as to who actually should be where.
Yes.
Zanardi's fallen back in line behind Gugelmin now. They'll get this sorted out before we go green. The cross flags again there, so we'll have at least another couple of laps to go while they just get themselves sorted out.
It's a bit like after you. No, after you, says Gugelmin. No, after you, says Zanardi. It all looks a little bit confusing out there. As you say, I think even the teams aren't quite sure what's going on, and I think the timekeepers are busily trying to relay the message as to exactly where everybody should be. And I hope that they know, because the rest of us seem to be struggling a little bit. The main thing is that Michael Andretti is leading after 119 laps here at Homestead. We've only got 29 laps to go, and this is going to be a real fight to the flag now. My word, if they can win on their first race. Now, don't forget, Michael Andretti's done this before, hasn't he? He won for Reynard, their first ever IndyCar race. He took the win. That was in Surfers Paradise a few years ago. I can't believe that he's actually going to be able to do this again with a different chassis manufacturer. That really would be one for the record books. And the Americans, Jeremy, they love their statistics, don't they?
Absolutely right. That would be quite amazing. You know, as I was just talking to a couple of weeks ago, and he was certainly expressing tremendous optimism. He wasn't quite so optimistic yesterday after having those problems in the what should have been the race car, but he was happy after the warm-up this morning. They're in the backup car. He was very happy with the car. He's certainly handling the way he liked it this morning, and he showed all the way through this afternoon so far, the first 120 laps, and it's very nice indeed. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think he's very, very happy indeed, and I should think Carl Haas is chewing that cigar a little bit harder at the moment down in the pit lane as he waits to see whether his new dream, if you like, of building an American-built IndyCar is actually going to be realised with a first time-out victory. That would be quite some achievement. As we mentioned yesterday in our qualifying programme, it's 1983 since an American-built chassis won an IndyCar race. Long time ago now, and it really would be a boost to the championship. It would be great. It's good to see other manufacturers involved, and with Lola struggling a little bit this year, it was looking a little bit easy for Reynard. It looks as though they've got a bit more competition. And don't forget that Carl Haas has told us on our preview program before, and other people, that they are planning to make customer versions of this car, perhaps not this year, but they will intend to sell them. And as they start the championship off like this, there'll be people clamoring on their door trying to get one before the end of the season, I think.
They're going to do quite a cosmopolitan outfit, that Swift Engineering. It's owned actually by Hiro Matsushita, of course, who's in the field here driving one of the Toyota engine cars. The other principals in the team, one of the principals is Jim Chapman, who's an Englishman who's been over here for 30 years. He's the director of manufacturing. He's the guy who put together the tooling, the people to build these cars.
So 27 laps to go. Let's just wait for the green to come again. It shouldn't be too much longer now. Let's just have a look. This is down at the starting gantry. We've still got the crossed flags at the moment. Don't think we're going to go green just yet. The pace car's still out there, but hopefully we shouldn't be too far away from that now.
No, we've shuffled around those guys a lap downing, and we've seen now that Scott Pruitt has gone back to the front of that little pack, and it's as it was some little while ago. It's Pruitt, Zanardi, Boisel and Gugelmin in 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. Those guys are all one lap down. Parker Johnstone leading those cars 2 laps down. In 9th position ahead of Patrick Carponche, Brian Herter, Richie Hearn and Mark Blundell. 1 lap to go, the signal there.
Yes, they've been given the 1 lap to go signal from the starting gantry, and so we're about to get this race underway. Just the 26 laps to go now. That's not going to take them very long. Remember, they're getting around this oval in around 30 seconds a lap.
and averaging around about 190 miles an hour in qualifying trim, a little bit less than that perhaps in race conditions, but this is not going to take very long to finish. It's going to be a fast and furious finale to round one of the PPG CART World Series. Is it going to be Michael Andretti to take the win for Swift, for the Newman-Haas team, one of the most successful teams in recent years in this form of racing, the team that Nigel Mansell won the championship with a few years ago, and Michael Andretti came close to it last year, ended up finishing second place in the series. One of the strongest teams out there, but they've got Paul Tracy right behind. What a wonderful contest this is going to be. Tracy behind, the reigning champion Vassar in third place, and we've got the youngster Greg Moore out to make a name for himself in fourth as we get ready to go green once again. Andretti times it beautifully, makes a great start. He gets away up front. Tracy now trying to get cleanly into second place. He's trying to get past Scott Pruitt, who's a lap down, and you're on board with Jimmy Vassar, who lies in third position behind Paul Tracy. Behind him is Greg Moore, and then the rest of the cars. But Michael Andretti, my word, he's made an absolutely superb restart there. Really got away well. He's into clear air. We've seen the performance that this car has got already this afternoon. The Goodyear tyres seem to be holding up well. Things are looking very, very good for Michael Andretti. I'm not sure that Paul Tracy has got enough pace to get past Scott Pruitt and move up and close up to put the attack on Michael Andretti.
No, Paul Tracy, he thinks this track owes him one. He reckons he was robbed here last year. He led convincingly past halfway before his gearbox broke. He wants to get up there on terms with Michael Andretti, but to do so, he's got to get past Scott Pruitt, and Scott Pruitt is not an easy man to pass. He, in turn, wants to try and get past Andretti so that if there is another full-course caution, he'll be able to go on around and take up position at the back of the pack and make his own charge for the lead later on. So you know that Scott Pruitt is not going to give up that place easily. In fact, he's pushing Michael Andretti very, very hard as they go through turn 2 there.
Yes, so the yellow and red cars. That's Scott Pruitt. He's not in second place. He's actually in fifth place, a lap behind. But what he's trying to do is to get past the race leader, Michael Andretti, to get back onto the lead lap. And that could give him a chance, particularly if there was another yellow flag. He closed up a little bit there, but now again, Andretti seems to stretch it away. Both of these guys are racing with Ford Cosworth power units, and the engine seems to be delivering the goods today. There's no doubt about that. Last year here, we saw dominance from Honda when De Ferran and Vassar were battling for the lead. This year it looks so even, but at the moment it's Ford that have the advantage. The Ford in the back of Michael Andretti Swift and the Ford in the back of Scott Pruitt's car, both working well. But don't forget, it's actually Paul Tracy who lies in second place. There he is. Tracy still on the lead lap. He's in second position. Then Jimmy Vassar with a Honda engine in third place. The three different engines in the top three positions. He couldn't ask for much closer competition than that.
And three different chassis as well, and two makes of tyres. So this is really a remarkable effort. There's Greg Moore in a 96 car, a year-old car in fourth place. So, boy, is this series competitive or what?
That's what we want to see. We want to see some great racing as we go through the course of the year, and I think this first round of the championship shows that there will be some great racing. This circuit might not be the most easy circuit on which to overtake. We've already talked about that a little bit. The layout of the track does make it difficult to get past other cars. We've seen one or two moves, not quite as many as we would like to see on an oval track. Normally you see a great many overtaking maneuvers. There's no doubt it is more difficult here, but the reprofiling of the track that's coming up during the summer should change that. But nonetheless, we've seen a great race so far, and we've only got 20 laps to go now. Alex Zanardi, he's in sixth place. His main rival is Scott Pruitt. If he's to move up a place, he's got to try and catch up to Scott Pruitt, but at the moment it doesn't look very likely he's going to be able to do that.
A very quick lap there for Michael Andretti, under 30 seconds, 29.903. That's a pretty fast pace. We're getting towards the nitty-gritty now, and Michael Andretti is putting his foot down. He's trying to put a bit of a gap between himself and Scott Pruitt there. He's not really able to do it because Pruitt, his last lap was identical time, 29.9. Alex Zanardi as well, also 29.9, and the other three leaders 30 flat. So there's nothing to choose between the guys, but Michael Andretti is in the catbird seat out there in front of the field.
On board with Andretti now, you can see just how close he gets it down into the apex of the corner. He's on the back straight. Listen to the engine as he comes. Oh, well, it's a shame. We just switched away. Just wanted to listen to how much he was easing off the power and then easing back onto the power through the corner.
You could just hear him ease the throttle a little bit going into turn 2 there. He's braking fairly hard probably for turn 1. In turn 2, I think he's just breathing the throttle just a little bit. I don't think he's on the brakes there possibly in turn 2, particularly not if he's doing 29.6 the last lap around. I think that might well be the fastest lap of the race. What a time to turn it.
Yes, he really is fired up, looking for that checkered flag, which is now only 17 laps away. There's not a lot that this man, Paul Tracy, can do about it at the moment. The gap, as you can see, is 1.6 seconds between the Swift and the Penske. Paul Tracy trying to put the pressure on Andretti, but Andretti is just going too fast for him. There's nothing he can do about it. Jimmy Vasser still in third place. That extra pit stop that he made working to his favour and putting him right up there. Third place for the reigning champion so far. Greg Moore still in fourth place. But as you ride, now let's try and listen here. Oh, again, we switch away from it just when we want to listen to him going up into turn number 3 there. But things are looking great for Michael Andretti. There are 16 laps to go. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back with the final stages here on Eurosport. Just 9 laps to go here, less than 9 laps, and it could be traffic that decides this as Scott Pruitt gets a bit closer to the back of the leader, Michael Andretti. Scott Pruitt is actually in 5th place. He's lapped, don't forget. Paul Tracy still in 2nd place, but Pruitt close to Andretti on the road. But as Andretti goes on to lap number 141 out of 148, he's managed to get another little bit of space between himself and Scott Pruitt, and again he's still lapping very, very quickly indeed. So it's still looking very good for Michael Andretti to take the first win of the championship. On board now with Jimmy Vasser. He's lying in 3rd position, but Greg Moore is very close behind. That is the car of Greg Moore you can see behind him, so that's still a little battle to be played to the checkered flag. It's looking for that little opportunity that might just come up still in traffic. We've seen how difficult it is to overtake in clean air here, but if you get some traffic ahead of you and you're forced to just lift off the throttle for a moment to avoid that slower car, then the car behind really has an opportunity. And Greg Moore getting that little bit closer. He's really putting the hammer down now. Look at this wonderful shot, 200 miles an hour, and Greg Moore trying to look for the opportunity to get past Jimmy Vasser. It wasn't quite to be found there, and that's just cost him another length or 2. But he's still got 6 laps in which to make a move and make it count. And you could see from that wall-mounted camera just how close Greg Moore is pushing the limit now. He's getting ever so close to the wall.
He's a very brave young man, is Greg Moore. He had a stunning drive here last year. There he goes, a good shot out of turn 2 there. He tucks into the slipstream behind Jimmy Vasser, but he doesn't have the power to make a pass. He perhaps just inch a little bit closer, but it's nothing like close enough to make a pass. And Jimmy Vasser's car is very good through turn 3 there. Vasser coming off turn 4. There's a slower car about 100 yards in front of him. He'll probably catch that in turns 1 and 2, and he'll be planning ahead, looking ahead, make sure he doesn't get too close as he comes into turn 2 there. Make sure he can get a clean run off the corner, down the back straightaway, and pass that slower car slowly. Cleanly, I should say.
Well, look, he's got a good slipstream here, as you say, with that traffic coming into play. This could be the last opportunity for Greg Moore. We've only got 5 laps to go of the 1.5-mile Homestead Motorsports Complex, and problems there for Raul Boesel by the looks of things, and that is rather sad to see, as he's been running quite competitively in the top 10 all afternoon, and what a shame with just a few miles to go. That's typical Raul Boesel luck though, isn't it?
It really is, you know. Oh dear me, I'm not sure he's pulling into the... He's not actually pulling into the pits. I can't understand why. He's just limping around. He's out of the way now. I'm sure the engine's clearly got a major problem. There's a puff of smoke there. He's keeping out of the way. He will pull off, I'm sure, at the end of the pit lane as the engine gives a nasty puff of smoke. And he's off the racetrack, so there should be no cause for a full course yellow.
Michael Andretti won't mind if there is a full course yellow. He's done 145 laps, and if it goes yellow now, then he will have won the race automatically. But look at this battle for 3rd place still. Greg Moore is in the blue and white car, running right behind you as you ride on board with Jimmy Vasser onto the brakes, and the car of Greg Moore just twitching around a little bit. Jimmy Vasser sounded like he almost had to grab another gear there as he tries to stay ahead of Greg Moore. Almost sounded as though he changed down for the 2nd corner, and across the line they go again.
146 laps in the books, less than 2 to go now for Michael Andretti. And as we're watching there, the battle for 3rd and 4th place, but Michael Andretti, another consistent lap there, 30.8 seconds. The gap, 3.9 seconds. We're on board now with Michael Andretti.
He's coming up to take the white flag this time, Jeremy. The white flag's being shown. It's the last lap for Michael Andretti. And what an amazing debut to the season this will be for the new Swift IndyCar. The 007, as it's called. I think it's a good name for it. That's just its type number. But the 007 Swift is going to win in its first ever outing. Reynard have done it it. They did it with the same driver, Michael Andretti, in 1994, and they're now going to do it as he comes out of the last couple of corners.
Into turn 4 there. He comes across Scott Pruitt, has closed up. Here comes Michael Andretti.
Michael Andretti
flag.
wins the first round of the 1997 PPG Kart World Series, and Mario is down there on the pit wall congratulating him. What an amazing achievement for the team. The Newman-Haas team, Carl Haas and Paul Newman, who decided to go for their own chassis for this year. They built it over the winter. The Swift guys down in California put it together. They've got the most amazing facility down there, a wind tunnel that some of the top Formula One teams use as well. They've put this car together and they've won. First time out with it. It's a victory for Swift, a victory for Ford, and a victory for Goodyear. And for Michael Andretti, after winning 5 races in the 1996 championship and finishing runner-up, what a perfect start to the season. Paul Tracy finishes in second place. Jimmy Vasser holds off Greg Moore for that third position. Greg Moore finishes 4th, Scott Pruitt 5th, and Alex Zanardi 6th. But there, Carl Haas on the right, you just saw him with Mario Andretti. There's Carl Haas, and what a wonderful achievement.
With Alex Cross there on the left next to Michael Andretti. There's Hiro Matsushita out of his suit. A great hug there. He even gets a kiss from Carl Haas. So there's something you would want, isn't it?
Absolutely amazing. And
Wilson Fittipaldi there, Christian's father. Alex Cross, of course, he's one of the founders of Swift way back in 1983, and he's a delighted man indeed. What a great day for these guys from Swift Engineering.
Look at that, they've got the banner ready already. Now that is confidence for you. First win for an American chassis since April the 17th, 1983. Us Brits better watch out, Jeremy, because the Americans have learned how to build an Indy car.
Phenomenal success. What a great... There's Peter Gibbons there, who's Michael Andretti's race engineer. He's been with Michael a long time. Peter Gibbons had a lot of input into that race car, along with Mark Hanford, a British aerodynamicist. They used the wind tunnel, fantastic wind tunnel that Swift Aero has down there in San Clemente, Southern California. But what a fabulous day for Michael Andretti.
Brilliant achievement for Michael Andretti, and the 34-year-old American who's won the championship before. He's had success in so many years, but what a brilliant success this is to start off the season. So there he is, and looking reasonably calm after that. I mean, in some ways, he made it look very easy. But let's not forget, he started from 14th position on the grid. He really obviously worked on a race setup for today. Hopefully, we're going to hear from him any second now and see exactly what he has to say after that tremendous performance. The guys from Goodyear, they're absolutely delighted as well, because first honours to Goodyear in the battle with Firestone, and the Penske guys coming over as well. Paul Tracy finishing second today, couldn't quite match his great rival Michael Andretti, and Jimmy Vasser taking that third place. Let's just see if we get to hear from Michael Andretti. Hopefully we will in just a few moments. Just waiting for everything to settle down there in the pit lane.
You build a new chassis, you want to get you to drive it. Another first-time victory with a chassis. The Renards, and now getting the congratulations of his teammate, Christian Fittipaldi.
Oh, it was perfect. You know, it's just great. Yeah, I'd love a new chassis every race would be great, but I just had a lot of confidence in it. You know, this morning we've made some changes last night, and the car was perfect this morning. I think we have a good shot at it, and green flag drop, we went forward and didn't miss a beat. The whole Kmart Havlin guys, they did a great job in the pit.
There's another guy that wants to stick his head in here. He said he had the need for speed at the top of the show. Paul Newman, he is a co-owner of the car, but listening to the radio transmissions, you had oiling problems in your primary car, and then Lee White said at the end of the race, looks like you finally figured the clutch out. What was that all about? Are you having some problems with the clutch?
We've been with this car ever since I got in it. All practice long, I'd be stalling it when I went out of the pits, and we got it right there in the end. So.
Your father, so critical through so many years, was there on the headset, really working hard, more so than we've ever seen before, down on pit road. He wasn't sitting up in the perch. He was back and forth with Lee White and the rest of the crew.
Well, he's a great help. You know, there's so many years of experience there, and it always just helps so much to have him there.
When you get a victory like this with a brand new chassis, how does that make you feel for the rest of the season? Again, the other car owner, Carl Haas here, here congratulating. Now, Carl is the importer of the Swift chassis, but you're the only one that's going to be driving them this year, you and your teammate. But now, with the first race under your belt, knowing you got this chassis where it needs to be, what kind of confidence does that give you for the rest of the season?
I have a ton of confidence, and the Ford Cosworth ran great, and the Goodyear tires, so I think we have the whole combination. So we're very excited about this year, you know, and my hat's off to Carl for taking the chance in the car, and I can't wait till the next race.
Well, Gary, one of the questions at the top of the show is who has the best package. Right now, it looks as if Newman Haas has the best package, Bob Varsha.
Well, Michael Andretti certainly delighted with that, as he should be, and that goes down in history really as a major result for the team and for a new chassis. They're the official results, well, unofficial at the moment. We wait for them to be confirmed. Tracy second, Vassar third, Moore fourth, Pruitt, and then Zanardi going further on down the list. You can see Guterman finished seventh in the end, so he'll be a little disappointed with that, I think, after running so strongly over the course of the weekend. And Mark Blundell finished in 14th place. He lost a bit more time towards the end of the race, so not a great start to the season for him. Dario Franchitti, we saw earlier on in the race having that accident, perfectly okay, which is good to see. Apparently he was trying to move out of the way, in fact, of the leaders coming through, and that is always going to be the problem on an oval track, and it's only something you learn by experience. You move offline
Paul
to let
Tracy
the leaders through, you end up in trouble yourself.
Here with the defending champion Jimmy Vassar. Paul, this has got to be like a huge load lifted after all the travails you went through in 1996. What a great way to start a new season.
Well, it really is. I'm really proud of the Marlboro team. We struggled in qualifying. We made a mistake on our setup, and that put us back. But we knew we had a race car. We did about 2,000 miles of testing here, and I'm real proud of them. They did great stops, and we just worked our way patiently up through the field. And hats off to Michael and Newman Haas and Kmart. They took the initiative to make their own chassis. They did a great job, and hats off. They deserve it.
You talked about patiently working your way through the field. Is that a new sign, a level of maturity from Paul Tracy? Because so many times, as you know, you've been fast. There have been a lot of wrecked cars in the wake.
Well, we're hoping so. Jimmy's laughing at me over here, but we're hoping to finish every race. We want to be consistent, finish on the, try to finish on the podium every time we can, and try to get the crown.
All right, Jack standing by with Jimmy V right now. Thanks, Paul.
All right, Jimmy, you were chuckling. What do you think? Maturity with Tracy?
Yeah, well, he's a great race car driver. He's won a lot of races, and everybody on the sidelines can say what they want about drivers, but you got to give credit where credit's due, and maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe he's already ready to go for the championship, but all credit to my Target Chip Ganassi team. They did a fantastic job. We had a tough weekend from the get-go. We've been quick here testing all the time, but we just kept having problems all weekend. Didn't qualify as quick as we could have, and the race we got a puncture, lost a weight jacker. But our team hangs in there. Target Chip Ganassi team's a great team, and that's the character that we showed today.
When you have the strength of a championship under your belt now, too, does that give you the extra character, the extra patience, some of the intangibles that maybe this team didn't have before you came on board and won the championship for them?
Well, I'm not going to say that. I just go out and do the best job I can, and last year my team put me in a car that could finish every race, and we did that, and today we just, we did the job we had to do. We ran the car that we had and tried to bring it home in the place that we could. We got a little break there on that yellow because we fell back on that punctured tire, but that was part of our strategy. We leaned it way out, and we were trying to pick up that window, and we did, and you got to give credit to the team, the strategy, Tom Anderson and Julian Robertson for that.
This is the first time that you've had these new cars, the new rules under race conditions. Your assessment as the defending champion?
Well, I thought it was a pretty good race. I thought it was fantastic. You could pass in traffic. It made it real exciting. And I said it before, some of the old timers, that's what they want. They want to bring more driver back into it, loosen it up, almost like a sprint car. And I think we did that a little bit. And it was a handful, but that's what they pay us for, to hold on to these things and bring them home. And I think Ralph Sanchez and CART did the right thing in trying to slow us down in the corners. And good job.
Bob, a lot of questions at the top of the show, but at least Chapter 1 has been written, and we've got some initial answers.
Some initial answers indeed, as we see the top three who have made it at the end of this first round. Andretti, Tracy, Vassar, three different makes of car, three different engine power units used, and the two different tyre manufacturers all involved in the podium finishers. Fantastic first race to the championship, there's no doubt about that. It's been a fascinating afternoon, and for Andretti, just the ideal start. So a little summary of all that, Jeremy. It's been, as I say, a very interesting race this afternoon, but as we head towards the next race at Surfers Paradise, does it give us any answers for that one?
I think it's going to be a completely different kettle of fish when we get down under, and that's going to be another great race. I don't think it's really going to have any bearing on it whatsoever. The cars will be totally different specification. It's a very tight but very fast street course, no room for error down there either. It has that in common with this place, but not really much else. The car's specification totally different, but you know, these are all great drivers, and there's going to be a lot more of them who have an opportunity to win down there.
Well, that'll be round 2 of the 1997 championship, and we'll be covering it, of course, on Eurosport. I hope you've enjoyed our extensive coverage of the PPG Kart World Series this weekend on Eurosport. It's been a joy to bring it to you. It's been great racing as well. So stay with us with the championship throughout the season. From Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw, goodbye for now.